What is happening now in economics, in the media, in the universities, in the Bank of England, in the government, it is a disaster. It is a comedy, it is a disgrace, it is unbelievable the childishly weak level of understanding in these institutions. But it is destroying the economy of this country and the lives of people in this country. So people need to understand it. So today, we're going to explain what is going wrong with economics. So in my 14 years of working full-time in the economy, I've never once seen a time where the public discussion, the public discourse coming from the media, from the Bank of England, from the government about the economy has been as ridiculously stupid as it is right now, okay? So we've got a situation where in the last 2 years, the government printed £450 billion, an unbelievably huge amount of money, and effectively transferred that money to the richest. If you don't understand why, watch the first video on this channel. They printed 450 billion, gave it to the richest, and that caused very predictable consequences, which is a big jump in inflation, a crisis of inequality, and cost of living crisis for ordinary people, okay? Very, very predictable, very understandable, okay? 450 billion pounds is an enormous amount of money from the government to the richest. Who's talking about it? No one. No one in media, no one in government, no one in the Bank of England, no one in the universities, right? So in this video, what I'm going to talk about is we're going to explain the system of economics as it's taught at universities and as it's discussed, so that people can understand why it is that all of our institutions that should be explaining what's happening have completely failed to understand what's happening now, okay? All right, so imagine you are smart, talented, young economics student, okay? A lot of people study economics nowadays because it's a degree that can get you a pretty good job, right? You can get a decent job if you study economics. So you go to a good university, you get a top class degree in economics. What are you going to do, all right? So you're 21 years old, you've just done your undergrad, good score in economics. If you want to become a professor, you're going to have to stay in academia for another 7, 8, 10 years, paying money every year to study. You're going to get yourself in 100, 200 grand of debt. And then after that, you'll have to work your way up in academia, maybe 6, 7 years down the line, you'll be making 60, 70 grand a year, okay? Or you can go into the city, in one of these skyscrapers over here, and in my case, by 26, I was a multi-millionaire. So imagine you are a smart kid from a poor or ordinary background, okay? You live in the world we live in, where houses in London cost 500,000, 700 grand. You're from a poor family. Which one of these two options are you going to take? You know, think about it, okay? So we live in a world where if you're from a poor background, you would be insane to try and get into academic economics. Okay, and what that means is we end up in a situation where if you go into economics at sort of PhD level or advanced level, there is basically nobody there from a poorer background. Or if they are there, it's because they basically didn't get the grades that were good enough to get a job in the city. So we've created a situation now where there's almost nobody from an ordinary background studying economics. And if you're really, really good at economics, there's an enormous financial incentive for you to go work in the city, right? So I did that, I got a degree and I went to work in the city. The statistics completely support this. Economics is the least representative of social class of all the subjects in the US, which is where all the biggest universities are. You're most likely to be from a family where the parents have degrees or have PhDs. You're least likely to come from families where parents don't. So it's very, very non-representative of social class. But also what it does is basically creates two separate worlds of economics, okay? So the best paid 10,000 economists in the world, they are basically all traders. Every single one of them, right? They all do what I was doing. They work for a fund, or they work for a big bank, they work on one of these skyscrapers. They sit in office and they make trades, okay? You will never hear them on the news. You will never, ever hear them on the news, okay? And these guys get paid, you know, £1 million a year, £2 million a year to manage money. But you will never hear them, okay? So when I was working at Citibank, I was a very successful trader. I was getting paid a lot of money. My job was to bet on European interest rates, okay? Say you're a journalist and you call up Citibank and you say, look, we want to know what's going to happen to the European economy. What are your predictions? Do you think they put you on the phone to me? They don't put you on the phone to me, right? They put you on the phone to somebody else who gets paid 50 grand a year, 20 times less than what I get paid, and that person will give you their opinion. But you see what I'm saying here? We've created this system where there's a huge financial incentive for all the best economists to work as traders, and they are legally not allowed in their contracts to talk to the press. That's the world that we live in, right? So we've created a world where we're selecting all of the people who we think are the best, we're sending them to the skyscrapers, and we're saying, you can't talk to the press, you can't talk to the government, you can't talk to the public. And yet we're saying, if you're willing to work for 30, 40 grand a year, which no good economist from a poor background is ever going to do, then you can work in the media, right? And I think it's really important to understand what we've done here, right? We've completely separated out the guys who think we are the best, and we've taken them completely out of the debate. And I think what is quite interesting is, I was working in these skyscrapers, I was making £1 million a year, you know what I mean? And I could still go and work in one of these skyscrapers and make £1 million a year, right? But now I'm out here, telling people what's happening on YouTube for free, and is Rishi Sunak calling me up? No, he's not, I went back to Oxford to do a master's, right? And I was one of the most successful, best paid traders in the world for trading interest rates. And I went into a lecture with the professor whose job is to teach about interest rates. And I said to him, why do you think you guys have predicted interest rates incorrectly for 10 years in a row? And he said to me, well, no, we always knew that rates would stay zero, which is categorically, completely, verifiably wrong, right? But he's able to say that because in academia, nobody ever goes back and checks if your predictions were right. You see what I'm saying? And then for me, I was able to go into the city and, come from a poor background, no connections, don't know anyone. And within a few years, I was famous in the bank because my predictions were consistently right. And I think it's interesting to contrast the world of finance where you work in a bank, right? You get 1,000 emails a day. You want to talk to a world economic expert in anything, you can call them up and they'll talk to you. You know what I mean? And you are working 100-hour weeks. If you need anything, it comes to you straight away. Compared to this guy who's working at Oxford University, has been wrong 10 years in a row and didn't even notice. And these guys who do that, they then go on to work at the Bank of England. So, right now there's a guy, Michael Saunders, who's on the MPC, okay? He was employed at Citibank as an economist, right? To analyse UK interest rates. While we were trading UK interest rates, we never read a single thing that guy wrote. This guy was a joke to us, right? We're getting paid £1 million a year. This guy's getting paid, 70 grand a year to produce things that we never read. Who do you think the bank really trusts? They're giving us £1 million a year to manage the money. They're giving this guy 70 grand a year to write papers. I think it's important to realise these guys in the media, these guys in academia, these guys at the Bank of England, they're not paid to be right. Nobody's paying them to be right. This guy at Oxford University can be wrong for 10 years in a row and never even notice. Never even notice. Like, that's unforgivable. That is horrifically bad, right? And these are the guys who we put in charge of our economy. You see what I'm saying? And yet, if you, like me, have a consistent track record for being right year after year after year after year, you can go and get £1 million a year working for Goldman Sachs or for JP Morgan. You know what I mean? But you can't give the advice to the government for free because they don't care. Listen, anyone out there who's watching, right? If you work for the government, if you care, why are you not calling me? You know what I mean? These guys think I'm worth £1 million a year. I'm willing to work for free. You see what I'm saying? Why is Rishi Sunak not calling me? Why is the Labour Party not calling me? Or, why is the Conservative Party not calling me? Why are the universities not calling me? Listen, I've been right year after year, and look at this crisis, okay? If you have time now, people watching, go back and look at the first video on this channel. In that video, I say this crisis is going to cause a massive transfer of cash from the government to the rich. That will lead to a massive increase in inequality, a massive increase in house prices, a massive increase in stock prices, a massive increase in inflation, and a cost of living crisis. That's there 2 years ago. 2 years ago. And that was not difficult to predict if you understand what's happening. It's not difficult to predict, okay? And yet now, it's actually happened 2 years ago, and they're still not talking about it. What is going on? But if you think about it, it makes total sense, right? Because if at 21, you come in and say, listen, all of the best guys, we're going to pay you £1 million a year to never ever speak publicly. And the rest of you, who are going to get yourself 200 grand in debt and maybe get a half-decent job in 15 years' time, you are the guys who are going to run the country. That's what we're doing. That's what we're doing, right? And I was working in the bank, and I used to bet year after year we're going to have a disaster, and these guys just say, here, go have £1 million, well, don't do it again. This is the world that we live in, okay, where we select at 21 all of the best economists, and we say, you guys are going to bet on it, and we select all of the posh economists who are not that good, and we say, you are the guys who are going to manage it. You see, it's crazy what's happening. And then now, we're in a situation where, look, it is verifiable fact that £450 billion was transferred from the government to the rich during COVID, okay? Verifiable fact, okay? If I was to come to you 3 years ago before COVID and say, imagine the government printed £450 billion and gave it to the rich, what do you think would happen? You don't need to be an economist. You'll say, okay, well, if the rich get a ton of money, they're going to push the prices up, which will be fine for them because they've got a ton of money, but will hurt the rest of us, right? And the rich will start to consume a larger share of the natural resources, and natural resources will become more expensive for the rest of us. That's not complicated, okay? That happened. It's obvious. It's obvious. And that's £450 billion. And now Rishi Sunak is on TV saying, oh, don't worry, we stand by ready to help with £5 billion. You give £450 billion to the rich, and then you say we're going to help with £5 billion. It's not going to help, right? And then Labour say, we're going to do a windfall tax on oil and gas companies, and we're going to raise £2 billion. These guys are so far out of touch. You know, they're playing a different game. You know, if you transfer £450 billion to the rich, and then you take £5 billion back, you're going to destroy the economy, right? But who's talking about it? Listen, if you work in government, okay, imagine you're going to print £450 billion, okay? Of course, somebody in government should say, okay, well, before we give £450 billion out, we should do a report and an analysis of who's going to get the money. We should do an analysis of where the money's going to end up. Who did it? Who did it? Who did that analysis? Nobody. Nobody. And if anybody is out there in government or civil service, find me that analysis, please. Please. Find me one person in government who said, before we give out £450 billion, we should do an analysis of where the money ended up, okay? And that's government, okay? Name me one person in the media who did that. Name me one single person in the media who did that. I did it, March 2020. Why am I the only guy doing it? If you're giving out £450 billion, you need to do an analysis of where the money's ending up. Nobody in government did it. Nobody in media did it. Who are these people? You know, it's insane. Not a single person. But then, you know, and I was speaking the other day to somebody from a media institution, who I won't name, and I said, why did nobody at your place do it? You know, and this guy works for a big newspaper in London. And I said, okay, answer me one question. You work for a big global newspaper in London. Is there anyone in your office that sounds like me? Anyone? No. Listen, if you run a global organization based in London and you don't have a single person on your staff who sounds like me, you fucked up. Because how can you possibly have the best people? But look, we've created a system where you can get paid £1 million a year over there, or you can get, if you want to work in media, you have to work for 7-8 years on 30 grand a year. You have to do unpaid internships. Only rich people can afford these jobs. So we end up with media full of rich idiots, government full of rich idiots, universities full of rich idiots, and anyone who's half smart is making £1 million over there to shut the fuck up. And you're surprised when the economy is a disaster. This is what we've done. We've created a system where we selectively pick all of the best people who should be helping to fix this economy, to protect the people of this country, to build a good future for this country and for the world, and all they're allowed to do is sit over there and bet on disaster, making money for themselves. You know, I'm out here, listen, I'm willing to support the government. If they actually want to help this economy, I'm here. They can call me, I'm willing to work. They're not calling me. And the worst thing is, they don't even realise how bad they're fucking it up. Who is talking about that £450 billion? £10,000 per person. Look, if the government were to bring in a policy now where they taxed every person in the country £10,000 and gave it all to the rich, people would be rioting on the streets. They've done it. That is what they did. And not a single person in the media is talking about it. So if anybody's watching who works in the media, please ask yourself, why are you not talking about that money? You can't give £450 billion to the rich and expect no consequences. You cannot do that and expect no consequences. But we live in a world where anybody who is entitled to a voice in economics, which is academics, people in the media, people at the Bank of England, people in government, has been specifically selected for not being very good. And anyone who is good can make £1 million to never say anything. And if that is the system you build of economics, do you expect to get good outcomes for society? Well, you don't. You will get the outcomes you get, which is me sitting here making a ton of cash and the economy going to absolute shit for the whole world. You know what I mean? So look, economics is broken. It's badly broken. People in the media need to wake up and look at what is happening. Ordinary people out there, you know, if you know anyone in media and government, ask them this one simple question. Has anyone in your organisation done a serious analysis of who got that £450 billion? £450 billion. And the amounts the government is talking about to help, 5 billion, 6 billion, after giving out 450 billion. You know, and if you know anyone who works for any of these newspapers, you know, has the Daily Mail mentioned it? No. Has the Guardian mentioned it? No. Has the Sun mentioned it? Has the Mirror mentioned it? You know, no. Has the Times mentioned it? You know. The Financial Times probably have, and these guys are reading it, you know what I mean? But it's a joke. It's a comedy. So I think people need to understand that we've destroyed economics. And, you know, I was at Oxford University for 2 years. The world would be a better place if they just burned that department down. Because these guys have no idea what's happening. No idea what's happening. They don't think about inequality ever. They've been wrong for 10 years. They didn't notice it. And the problem is, you know, they don't get hurt. They don't get hurt. They don't get punished. They don't get hit by it. It's ordinary people that lose out. These guys literally have dinner in their Harry Potter hallways every day, you know what I mean? They get paid a nice salary, and they're wrong year after year after year after year, and they don't even notice. And, you know, I remember when I was there, having my one mid-year review, when I told them this, and they said, what do you mean, you know? Things are getting better. Sitting there in a wood-panelled room in a castle with these guys wearing their capes saying, things are getting better. And you couldn't help but hear those two missing words, you know, things are getting better for us, you know. Because for those guys, it's totally fine. For all of these guys working for The Guardian and working in the Bank of England, you know, Andrew Bailey gets paid £500,000 a year to be wrong every year. Every single one of these posh idiots is totally fine. And it's ordinary people who are getting hurt. So it's a joke. I mean, it's a disgrace, really, and we need to fix it. But look, I'm out here trying to fix it. So if anyone in the government is listening, wake up, because things are going to get worse and worse and worse. Seriously. And look, I'm not just saying that. I'm betting on it. And I'm the guy that's been right for 10 years in a row. And these are the guys who've been wrong. So people listening should think about who they trust. But things can be fixed, but only if we start addressing the fact that we gave £450 billion to a bunch of fucking billionaires. We don't fix that, doesn't get better. So hopefully we will. Happy? There you go.